Allow me to welcome you to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics and to this maiden conference on the role of statistics in national development and the post-COVID-19 recovery in Uganda, with the main center here at the UBOS Conference Hall, but with also some centers in the different districts, that is Soroti, Mbarara, Lira, Nebi, Kabalore, and Ruwero. We have gathered different panelists and different discussants, and you, our dear viewers who are watching us from the 3 TV stations that are airing this live, that is NBS, NTV, and UBC. Many of our stakeholders, many of the panelists will join us via the Zoom platform because that is the new normal way of doing things. And since this is an e-conference, we found it better to ensure that they can join us from wherever they are to avoid being in one place so that we don't spread or contract COVID-19. Allow me now to invite our Executive Director, Dr. Chris Ndatiramukiza, to come and officially welcome you, our viewers and those present here, to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Dr. Chris.
Thank you, MC. The Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, in charge of planning, representatives of diplomatic missions and international organizations, representatives of government ministries, departments and agencies, and in a special way, the Deputy Governor, Bank of Uganda, our longtime friend, representatives of higher local governments, representatives of civil society organizations, the academia and the private sector, the public viewing us from wherever you are, members of the media, colleagues from Uganda Bureau of Statistics, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed. On behalf of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, and indeed on my own behalf, I take the honor to welcome you this morning to this e-conference with a major focus of deepening the plan for national statistical development. Thank you for accepting our invitation to participate in this high-level national dialogue. Your presence and your being glued to the TV cannot be taken for granted. In a special way, I wish to thank you for setting aside to electronically attend this event. We appreciate the support and importance you attach to quality statistics, their use and impact on national development. This event is focused on increasing the awareness and advocacy for production, access, and use of quality official statistics for policy formulation, planning, decision-making, and equitable service delivery. The theme of this e-conference, namely, role of quality statistics in development, national development, and post-COVID-19 recovery in Uganda, was chosen to amplify our resolve in producing, publishing, and communicating quality statistical indicators for sustainable development. As it is already evident, the coronavirus outbreak has already had a far-reaching negative effect on individuals, households, and businesses, and thus significantly impacted on the country's development targets and results. Going forward, comprehensive and demand-driven statistics will be more than ever critical in helping governments and private sector address the socio-economic shocks to support recovery during and post the pandemic era. At the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, we believe in the commitment to strengthening the national statistical system to produce timely, equitable, and demand-driven indicators. This commitment forms the fulcrum of our third wave of the Plan for National Social Development, PNSD3, which resonates well with the aspirations of the third National Development Plan. The PNSD3 is deliberately and strategically aligned to the NDP3 for obvious reasons. And obvious reasons are to track development progress. Allow me, Right Honorable Speaker, and all our viewers, emphasize to you that the PNSD3 is strongly focused on further building the capacity of ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as higher local governments, to produce engendered and demand-driven statistics that are responsive to national development priorities, as well as international, continental, and regional development frameworks. In addition, the PNSD3 will focus on expanding the national statistical system to include the civil society organization, the private sector, the other non-state actors in the statistical production value chain. One of the important non-state actor that has now been included in our NSS is the Uganda Kingdom. And we applaud the Kingdom for embracing quality statistical production and use. We shall be spreading our wings to other kingdoms, for once they are in the NSS, the administrative data, right from the village to parish, will be strengthened for use in understanding the performance of those jurisdictions and the policy formulation countrywide. The essence of all of this effort is to respond to the fact that we are required to continually and continuously measure the country's progress towards the attainment of the national development plans, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, as well as other development frameworks, the Africa 2063 Agenda, the East African Community Integration Agenda, and the COMESA region. To this end, we have already developed the National Standards Indicators framework to support the effective monitoring of the NDP and SDG. From a gender dimension, we have also developed the National Priority Gender Equality Indicators for the same reason, focusing on gender aspects. Through our line minister, we continue to appreciate the technical and financial support from the government of Uganda and different partners that has enabled us to come this far. I equally salute all the members of the NSS, namely ministry, department agencies, higher local governments, civil society organizations, including academia, and other stakeholders who have invariably contributed to the production of statistics that are a pillar of our national development. We look forward to continued collaboration, cooperation, and partnerships in building a robust and sustainable statistical system in Uganda, with a vision of being a world-class national statistical system. With these few words, I once again welcome you and wish you all of us fruitful deliberations at this monumental e-conference. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening to me, for God and my country.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris Ndatiramukiza, our Executive Director, for those welcome remarks. Allow me now tell you how we are going to go forward. We are going to have 4 sessions. Session 1 is on the role of statistics in supporting national, international development agenda, focusing on the Plan for National Statistical Development, the NDP3, and the Global Sustainable Development Goals. I can see the panelists for this session are already available. They are on Zoom. Session 2 will be assessing the impact of COVID-19 on socioeconomic statistics and socioeconomic activities, and also the panelists are very present. Session 3 will be the importance of administrative data and the role it plays in addressing the gender gap. Its panelists are also present. Session 4 will be the relevancy of statistics in national development, and all its panelists will join us via Zoom. That is the Commissioner in charge of M&E, Mr. Mayanja Gonzaga from OPM. We have Ms. Pamela Mbabazi from the NPA, and we have different chief administrative officers of different districts also joining us from the different centers that I had earlier mentioned. We shall have a wrap-up session by our Executive Director, and that will be from 12:50 to 1 p.m. Thank you very much. Allow me now to hand you over to Maurice Mugisha, who is going to moderate this session. Maurice.
Thank you very much, Catherine. A very good morning to all of you. Those here with us at Statistics House, we want to thank you so much for joining us. The Executive Director, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the Deputy Governor, Bank of Uganda, who is here present, and all those who are watching us via Zoom. As is culture, and since we are in a COVID situation, I'll try and remove my mask when I'm here, but that's only because everyone else here is wearing a mask. And those of you on Zoom cannot infect me, and I can't infect you. So allow me remove the mask so you can hear me properly. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're most welcome to this e-conference on the role of statistics in national development and post-COVID-19 recovery in Uganda here at the UBOS Conference Center. I want to welcome you all, and as the Executive Director mentioned, our theme, the role of quality statistics in national development and post-COVID-19 recovery here in Uganda. We are going to quickly move to our very first session this morning, and we are very honored to have all our participants with us, and technology has allowed that they join us via Zoom, and as Catherine mentioned, in keeping with the Ministry of Health guidelines, ensuring that we have enough social distancing in this room and having most of our panelists online. So allow me introduce our first session that we'll be looking at the role of statistics in supporting national and international development agenda, focusing on the Plan for National Statistical Development, the National Development Plan 3, and the Global Sustainable Development Goals. Allow me welcome the an international statistics consultant, Professor Ben Chirejera, who is now going to take us through. And Ben, please do talk to us about the role of statistics, and I want to mention quality statistics in supporting national development. Over to you, Professor.
Okay, thank you.
Professor, did we mute your microphone? Just checking that your microphone is not muted on my end.
Okay, it must have.
There you go. There you go. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I invited the guests, distinguished panelists, viewers, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning.
Good morning, Prof.
I want, first of all, to thank UBOS for organizing this e-conference and for the invitation to participate at the conference. And I've been requested to focus my remarks on the plan for national statistical development. But I want to preface this with a few words about statistics. Let me say that this conference has given UBOS and other data producers a good platform to create an appreciation and understanding among stakeholders about the role and importance of statistics to society. And I must mention that we really need more of such dialogue if we are going to scale up data uptake and use, especially in this information age. But let me also mention that there's a general tendency to think of statistics just as a technical tool for use for monitoring and evaluation. And mention that statistics is a much broader concept. In fact, statistics is now viewed as a cutting-edge 21st century resource, and is now evidence that countries which are able to harness this resource have a comparative advantage in their development. And recently, The Economist had this to say about statistics, and I quote, "The world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data." But then let me also mention that statistics is also a development issue. And it's a development issue because no meaningful discourse on development can take place without invoking statistics. But also statistics is a public good, and is now regarded as an integral part of national and international infrastructure for development. And basically, statistics play a dual role: the role to inform and the role to influence development. And in particular, statistics act as a resource for advocacy, a stimulant to public action. It's a catalyst for change, and of course, it provides evidence over intuition and anecdotes in management of society. So we use statistics for public policy, design and analysis, for planning, for administration, for reporting, for development progress, for governance and accountability, and of course also for public debate and informed choices. However, for statistics to play these roles, they have to be good. And good statistics are statistics with quality, accuracy, consistency, timeliness, statistics that have integrity, and statistics that can meet user needs. I can give you a quick example of bad statistics. In 2004, there was a big debate about estimates of per capita income in Ghana. The World Bank estimated the per capita income to be $380 US. Then the president of Ghana, President Kufu, estimated it to be at $660. I don't know when presidents started estimating development indicators. And then the Minister of Finance in Ghana, Minister Weredu, put the figure at $1,000. So you can see that in one country and in one government, different centers are talking about different figures for the same indicator. And this is very unfortunate, and we try to move away from that. And one way of moving away from that is to ensure that we have a coherent national statistical system that is built through a planning process, because you can't have good quality statistics coincidentally or using ad hoc piecemeal approaches. Rather, you have good quality statistics through more systematic and coordinated and planned manner. And so a statistical plan is extremely important, stay oriented and focused. And the overarching goal of any statistical plan is to ensure that at the end of the day, we give the right data to the right people in the right format and at the right time. And let me mention that UBOS spearheaded the design of the first plan for national statistical development way back in 2005. And there are very many interesting things about that plan. One is that this plan mainstreamed sectors into national statistical planning processes with, of course, a focus on improving administrative data. But secondly, this mainstreaming was a great innovation to the extent that the African Development Bank and other international agencies took Uganda's approach and experience, and they wrote an international guide on how best to design a statistical plan. And so I want to congratulate UBOS and Uganda for this major contribution to international statistical planning methodology. And I have had the privilege of promoting this methodology across different countries in Africa. And also I must mention that since then, many countries in Africa have sent their staff here to learn how Uganda has been able to put in place her national statistical plans. Let me also mention that this plan was mainstreamed in NDP1, National Development Plan, and this was a very good practice. In fact, I know of only a handful of countries that have succeeded to recognize statistics as a development area and that have been able to mainstream it in their development plans. So when the first plan ended, we had the second statistical plan, and it was extended for 2 years so that it could be aligned to NDP 3. And so we are rolling off the third national strategy for the development of statistics. And as has been mentioned by the executive director of UBOS, it is very much aligned to the third national development plan. Let me mention that this third national statistical development plan has been designed at a very critical time, when, for instance, the nature of our economies is changing with a strong movement towards a digital economy because of the fourth industrial revolution, but also because of the new emphasis on the greener economy, emphasizing environmental sustainability. But it has also been designed at a time of unprecedented increase in demand for development data, in terms of scope, quantity, and also disaggregation. There is demand for actionable and granular data which are needed to respond to hotspots like COVID-19 hotspots. And also, as the executive director has mentioned, the data ecosystem is changing, that we are bringing on board the private sector, the civil society, and other non-state players in the production of statistics. But also, there are emerging new and non-traditional data sources like big data, which we normally get from the private sector and so on and so forth. There is a new emphasis on the partnerships, and of course, there is much talk now about open data, where we try to ensure that official statistics become readily available and accessible to the population. This is democratization of statistics. But also, we have ensured that we take on board innovative technologies to cut down on the costs and improve quality of data, and of course, turnaround time in data production. So, the third national strategy for the development of statistics speaks to this environment, and its theme is innovation, modernization, and transformation of the national statistical system. And as I've mentioned, it is mainstreamed into the third national development plan, and this is something that we want to thank the chair and the board of NPA for doing, because many other countries have failed to do this. And indeed, in this regard, I want to mention that the high-level statistical products that are produced by the national statistical systems have been mapped against the 18 program areas of the National Development Plan 3. And the idea here is to establish relevance of statistics at national development planning. Now, there are 3 goals to the third national strategy for the development of statistics.
Yes, Professor.
One of them is coordination, then there is statistical capacity building, there is strengthening systems for data production and management, and of course, and very, very importantly, there is a goal on dissemination, uptake, and use of statistics, because we believe that there is no point in producing statistics if they're not going to reach those who need them and can be used, especially for development.
All right, Professor. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I have 1 minute.
Yes, very quickly, Professor.
Let me use my 1 minute to say that the plan has a special focus on improving administrative data, and I want to appeal to all stakeholders to use statistics as evidence in all the work that they do. And I want once more to congratulate and thank UBOS for organizing this e-conference, and let us have more of such conferences in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Really, really insightful. And as you can hear in the room here, we are very few, but they are applauding your contribution to this conversation this morning. Professor, thank you. Please don't go very far. Stay online, and we may want to come to you at some point during this e-conference. If you're just joining us and you're watching us on UBC, NTV, and NBS, you are joining us for the e-conference on the role of statistics in national development and post-COVID-19 recovery in Uganda. We want to welcome you. We are coming to you live from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics Conference Center. All right, so it's one thing, as Professor mentioned, to adopt and appreciate the role of statistics and allow it to drive the national development agenda, but it's another to have it driving key national policies. And here I want to speak to the Sustainable Development Goals, where I want to introduce our very special guest, Her Excellency Rosa Malango, the UN Resident Coordinator, who's joining us via Zoom also. So, Your Excellency, if you're joining, if you can hear me and you're with us, I wanted you to speak to us about the performance of the performance based on the voluntary national review of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm not sure, Your Excellency, do we have you online? Can you hear us? All right. As we try and track Her Excellency, I'll come back to her very shortly. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, and as I mentioned, we are coming to you from across the country, and I want to appreciate UBOS for ensuring that everyone is involved in this conversation. So let me cross to Soroti. And in Soroti, we have Dr. Imelda Atai, who is the Deputy Executive Director, Statistical Production Development, who is joining us also via Zoom. So, Doctor, if you can hear me, please say hello.
Hello.
Yes. Well, we can hear you, Doctor. Thank you very much. Doctor, please talk to us. A lot of us are scared about statistics. Please demystify this for us and those who are viewing us across the country.
Thank you very much, Maurice. Good morning, viewers. I'm here in Soroti with the Chief Administrative Officer from Soroti District, Mr. Otimong Moses, the Chief Administrative Officer from Moroto, and the town clerk for the new Soroti city, including several participants from here. Viewers, statistics is just a branch of mathematics. All of us use statistics every day. And even now we are using statistics because from statistics house, you can tell how many people are in statistics house. A farmer uses statistics to inform how much he should plant in a given garden. I know my mother every day when she's going to harvest, she goes to the middle of the garden, she picks a heap of potatoes and harvests, and she's able to determine how much yield she's going to get from this garden. So statistics is for all of us, and world over, no good decision can be made without statistics.
All right.
And therefore, a census is just a count of people who are in a country at any given point. Even as individuals, you can take a census of your household, but for UBOS, now we take a census of the entire country. Imagine a camera looking at Uganda from above, and that is all about statistics, Maurice.
Dr. Imelda, I know you can go on and on about statistics, and so I will be careful with my time, and I need to monitor you. Let's talk about, everyone who knows about UBOS thinks that the role of UBOS specifically is to run a census, and I'm happy you spoke to the population and housing census. But let's discuss where Uganda ranks in the housing and population census. You want to take us there?
Oh, thank you very much, Maurice. Currently, the world population is about 7.8 billion. And China is next with about 1.4 billion. When you come down to Africa, we are about 1.3 billion. And of course, Nigeria is the most populous with over 200 million people. And down to us in Uganda, we rank about 32, 32nd in the world, with a population of about 41.6 million. And that is after Kenya with 54 million about, and Tanzania with 60 million. And down to us, you find that out of our population, 51% are female and 49% are male, meaning that the 51 females have to compete for these 49 men. And this underscores the value of women in any decision-making that we make in this country.
I knew you had to throw that in. I was hoping to use it against you, but you decided to move ahead of me. Thank you, Doctor, for raising that. Let's speak to the issue of the role of a typical Ugandan, and I'm speaking from a layman's position. The role of a typical Ugandan in understanding the value of the population and housing census.
A typical Ugandan should know that when we have population figures, you're able to determine what you can do best. Even if you're a business person, you'll know where to set up your business. If you're selling Rolex, you'll know where you put your stand for chapati. You'll know that today when I make 3 packets of flour, I'm going to sell it at this cost, and I'm able to get this much profit. And this is all informed with the population figures that we get from the population and housing census. We're also able to know how many people are voting age, how many people should receive this adult suffrage monies that the government has been giving. I have an example from my village where an old woman underdeclared her age.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
But the figures on the records we had showed that she was very young. So it's important for us to give correct statistics. Maurice.
All right. So, Doctor, finally, before I let you go, and I know I will be speaking to the cows you have there much later, the key indicators to demonstrate the value of statistics, and I know Professor Ben Chirejera spoke to the macro values of these indicators, but you want to run us through that?
Well, I'll just pick one. For instance, the dependency ratio. Currently, the dependency ratio is 103, meaning that for every 100 people who are working of working age, they have to look after 103. So it shows that even you now, when you're there, maybe somebody's beeping you that, Maurice, I need some assistance. The level of dependence is very high. And for men, it's even higher at 110. So every 100 men have to look after another 110 people. For us women, it's at a 97. So it means that these population figures give us the numbers for us to plan. Government is able to come up with different policies to help these people who are not working to also move into the working age. Maurice.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Imelda. Please do stay with us and ask the cows to stand by. We'll come back to Soroti very shortly. I want to come back and invite again Her Excellency Rosa Malango, the UN Resident Coordinator to Uganda. And Your Excellency, if you're with us, I would like to pick your mind on the Sustainable Development Goals, Uganda's position and performance best on voluntary national review. Your Excellency.
No, thank you very much. Let me start off by saying a word of congratulations. Congratulations for having this very timely discussion organized by UBOS. Congratulations for having had your third National Development Plan adopted recently. And congratulations for the Buganda Kingdom joining as a partner and being the first kingdom to do so. So that's my first word of congratulations. Now, when it comes to Ugandan's stance and the Sustainable Development Goals, I guess there's about three things that I want to put on the table. The first one is to acknowledge that from the UN standpoint, Uganda was one of the first countries to actually align the Sustainable Development Goals to its National Development Plan. And the only reason it was able to do that was because they had already had a discussion and a commitment to make sure that statistics were part of the National Development Planning process. Many countries still struggle with that, but that was done here. And what that enabled us to do as a UN was to make sure that our development assistance framework was also aligned to National Development Plan 2 and some of the sustainable development statistics during the first round. Now, as you rightly mentioned, in July, Uganda presented its second report on the Sustainable Development Goals, which really focused on the progress made. The first VNR in 2016 was about readiness. So where are we today? We now have a report from Uganda where Uganda has been able to report on 92 out of over 200 indicators and targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. So while progress has made, there is still a very significant gap. It is our hope that working together as part of National Development Plan 3 and the new plan we're discussing here today, we will be able to increase the alignment and use these universal indicators and targets to make sure there's greater mutual accountability for implementing your vision, both by the UN, by the private sector, and by others. But we cannot discuss about statistics and sustainable development goals without recognizing an unforeseen hazard, COVID-19. We had scenarios done for everything except a global pandemic. And if you look right now, based on the socioeconomic analysis on the impact of COVID-19, which the UN recently did, we did notice that it severely impacted across the board on the sustainable development goals in Uganda, but allow me to highlight some that we've seen the most severe impact. First, on your ability to eliminate poverty, which is SDG 1. Second, on zero hunger, SDG 2. 3, on good health and well-being, SDG 3. 4, on gender equality, SDG 5. And 5th, on decent work and economic growth, which is SDG 8. So in terms of where do we go from here, we believe that this is a good opportunity to look at how we can align the national data system to the national and global development frameworks. And we really believe that the Sustainable Development Goals give us an opportunity to bring data closer to the people.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, just to pick on the conversation you're sharing, and much later, Your Excellency, we will be looking at the social impact or the relevance of statistics in driving or informing the policies, government policies in addressing some of the areas affected by COVID-19, the pandemic that we are under. Just to pick up from you, what are you picking? What are the failures you're picking from our communities on the level of impact of our people in view of us achieving the SDGs? But I also know that the statisticians who are here in this room will be speaking to how the number of people that will be falling back into poverty will increase in the next few months. You want to share something on that very briefly?
Absolutely. Let me share with you a little bit what we've got and what I have seen. Number one, what our analysis brought to our attention was that there was a whole group and segment of society that would not be able to benefit from the programs and the stimulus packages that were being discussed at the beginning of the pandemic. And the rationale for that was because a significant number of the people who are vulnerable, and that is women and youth, found themselves in the informal economy. So in the informal economy, hard to reach places, micro, small enterprises, how can they benefit from the stimulus packages and the programming that was going on? First things that came out. And I'm really excited to let you know that working closely with the private sector, in particular with Stanbic, we are trying to see how can we target the circles and the village saving groups and help the people to be able to gain a livelihood from that standpoint. That is a change in the way we program. That's as a result of that analysis. A second thing that we also saw was also kind of a breakdown of information exchange and data. Because right now, because of COVID, people have to stay at home. We are working at 20 or 30%. So, and I'm very excited to see some of the cows and local governments here, but how can they make sure that they get the right information on time, on the resources that they need to be able to respond to what is happening? So some districts went from having to worry about roads and trade to having to worry about access to health because the health centers are completely overwhelmed, worrying about the children because they're not in school and they're roaming the streets, worrying about crime because people don't have jobs and you have to figure out how to deal with that. So even the socioeconomic plans for each of the districts have changed. This is what our analysis has brought about. And the third and last thing that I should highlight, Uganda, you're the second youngest nation in the world, according to our statistics. So any action that you take must make sure that the youth can participate constructively, in addition to making sure that the women can do so as well. You have an opportunity to use disaggregated data every time you have a report, every time you do a mission, every time a new program is rolled out, to make sure that the youth and the women can be part of the solutions of the new Uganda post-COVID.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Rosa Malango. And as I let you go, I need to let you know that much later we'll also be looking at the use of data and the importance of data in addressing the gender gap, and we have the UN women represented here. So you're well covered, and I know you're very happy about that. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I want to ask the team to try and connect me to Nebi now, and I wanted to invite James Mwonge. I don't know if James Mwonge can hear me. He's the Director of Professional Services Unit. And James, on this session, you will be really the last person to make a comment on the different household surveys and their relevance in planning, and the focus of the Uganda panel survey and the Uganda National Household Survey. So James, if you can hear me, please go ahead. Do we have James? All right. So as we try and get hold of James, I wanted to bring back, I don't know if Professor Ben is still available with us. And Professor Ben Chirejera, you have been listening in to both Her Excellency Rosa Malango. You did also listen in to the Deputy Executive Director who is coming to us from Soroti. And also the conversation based on what the Executive Director said here in his opening remarks has been around the value of quality data in informing the areas we will be discussing much later. You did touch on the issue of environment. Later we'll be talking to the issues of the gender gap. And now we have the COVID-19 pandemic. So Prof, based on what you have had this morning, share with us your quick takeaway in session 1 on utilization or the usage of statistics or quality statistics in supporting the National Development Agenda.
Thank you, Maurice. And I think we're having a meeting of minds among those who have spoken. And what is coming through is the realization about the need to use data as evidence in planning for the youth, in planning for the elderly. But you see, if you don't know how many they are, then you have a problem. Which takes me to the issue of data gaps. We seem to have serious data gaps in our systems on different areas of national development. I didn't mention briefly the area of environment. We really have not done well enough in terms of ensuring that we produce good quality statistics on environment. There was talk about the youth. We have challenges, especially with the activities that the youth are undertaking, because we don't have good statistics on informal sector, where we have the youth, the women, and some of the vulnerable groups. So really going forward, and this is very much emphasized in the third plan for national statistical development, we want to get into those areas where we have serious data gaps to make sure that these gaps are filled. And also it is by doing that we are able to have data on all SDG indicators. As was mentioned, we are talking about having data more or less on 92, 92 of the 230 also indicators. So we really have a long way to go. But I must mention that UBOS has taken all measures to ensure that it galvanizes all the MDAs to be able to understand the importance of data. Let me really mention very quickly, that one of the challenges we have, and this across Africa, is that in MDAs, data is looked at as a non-core function. And in my interaction with the different MDAs across Africa, I make the point that in the 21st century, in the information age, if data is not a core function of a modern organization, data should be mainstreamed in the core functions of the organization.
All right.
And so the challenge really is for the leadership of MDAs to understand the importance of data, to realize that without good data, they can't manage, because the saying goes that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And therefore, it should be possible for us going forward to really galvanize the entire public sector, the private sector, and the other sectors to make sure that we can work together in partnership, which I mentioned, to have good quality statistics.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor. All right. Very quickly, James Mwonge, I want to check that we have Nebi online. We have a minute, James. So you'll try and summarize this and briefly tell us about the different household surveys and their relevance in planning. James?
Thank you, Maurice. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed. I've also followed you up and moved the mask because the other members in the hall have their masks on. Now, in Nebi, we have in our presence the cow of Koboko and the cow of Nebi. Going to the questions, the role of household surveys, as Dr. Melda mentioned about censuses, but in between censuses, household surveys play a key role in providing information on the trends of what is happening in between censuses. And so we have, as a bureau, we have conducted several household surveys. The Uganda National Household Survey is one of them. We have had the panel survey, which is an annual survey, which tracks households every year, the same households over time. We have also conducted demographic and health surveys every 5 years. And also in addition, in order to measure the performance of service delivery, we also undertake national service delivery surveys. So these surveys have provided information that has been a major input into the decision-making processes in terms of informing them of where we are and comparing it to where we've been. And so I think they have continued to provide this key detailed information, which you cannot easily get from a census, given that the census covers quite everybody, virtually everybody in a country. But the survey focuses on only a few households, but it goes deeper to try to understand, first of all, the dynamics, what is happening to these households, but also generally what is changing, where are the areas of improvement, which areas are lagging behind, so that the country is able to be guided accordingly to be able to monitor and measure, the performance. So household surveys of their own played a key role in guiding decisions at all levels. Of course, at national level, that's one area, but also at sub-regional level, one is able to see the levels of inequality across regions or sub-regions, and these come out when one analyzes the different aspects. So surveys have actually filled the gaps that censuses cannot fill.
All right, thank you. We initially actually had much better sound than when the microphone came. So I'm not so sure if your colleagues the cows cannot hear you, but we had you better without the microphone. So when I come back to you or come back to the cows, it should actually be better without the microphone. All right, so I want to thank you, all of you, for your contribution during session 1. I have run out of time for session 1, and I want to quickly move to session 2. And I want to invite the Deputy Governor, Bank of Uganda, Michael Atengiego, to take his seat at the front. Please do join us. A lot of the people in this room may not know how you look because you stayed away from us for some time after your appointment, but we are glad you're in the country now and are here with us. So it's an honor to have you here in this room. Also, allow me to invite... You can see how we are excited to see you, sir. Also, allow me to invite the Executive Director, Private Sector Foundation Uganda, Gideon Badagawa, who is here to come and take his seat at the front. And also with us is Dr. Sam Mugume, the Principal Statistician at the Ministry of Finance. Please do come and also take your seat at the front. I'm not so sure if Dr. Sarah Sewanyana, the Economic... Oh, yes, Dr. Sarah will be joining us via Zoom. So, Dr. Sarah, please do prepare to take your question via Zoom. Dr. Sarah Sewanyana is from the Economic Policy Research Center. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen who are joining us online via Zoom, but also those of you who are watching on UBC, NBS, and NTV, we've moved to session 2, where we'll be looking at the impact of COVID-19 on the socio-economic activities. And I'll quickly start with the Executive Director of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, who will share with us, Dr. Muchiza, who will quickly share with us the findings on the impact of COVID-19 on households and businesses in Uganda. Doctor, I'm very uncomfortable giving you a short time limit, but given the constraints we have, allow me let you know that you don't have more than 5 minutes, Doctor.
Thank you, Maurice. Since I have limited time, I'll just run through quickly the highlights of the phone surveys we conducted for the period of April and May. Earlier, maybe in the discussion, we shall share with you, the public, what we had anticipated at the advent of the outbreak. I'll start with the results from the phone survey on households. 83% of households reported dry cough to be a COVID symptom. This was the awareness of the symptoms of COVID. 67% of the respondents knew fever as a COVID-19 symptom. 36% of the respondents, and I want to say that the response rate was 96%. So we had a very good response. 36% named shortness of breath as a COVID-19 symptom. Whereas 44% of the respondents believe that coronavirus will not survive in warm weather. Grossly a misconception. 38% believe that local herbs can help treat COVID-19 patients. 26% think that consumption of alcohol provide immunity to the disease. So you can see that group in very serious danger. 16% do not think that children can be affected by COVID-19. On the concern, 76% of the respondents worry about themselves or their immediate family members becoming seriously ill due to coronavirus. So there is higher awareness. Less than 1% of the households had issues accessing water. Whereas we know that washing hands is one of the important weapons to prevent of the virus with soap, only 1% of the households had issues accessing water. 80% of households struggled to have enough soap to wash hands. 16% reported that they could not buy their own staple food items. 19% of respondents could not access medical treatment for whatever illness during the period, April and May. 59% had children attending remote learning activity. So 41%, 4 in 10 children have not accessed any learning facility during the period. And 8 in 100 households experienced severe food insecurity. 9 in 10 of the respondents that stopped working cited COVID-19 related reasons for job interruptions after March 2020. In terms of the economic activity, service, transport, and commerce are the sectors hit most by the COVID-19 restrictions, having lost the highest share of workers. 43% of respondents in the service sector were no longer working up to now, up to the time of the survey. Agriculture was the least affected. 9 in 10 of the respondents in this sector kept working despite the anti-COVID-19 measures. And it's no surprise that in our economic growth numbers, the agricultural activities registered significant growth figures. Since COVID-19 outbreak, 9 in 10 of the households have reported reduced income. 9 in 10. There was no earnings at all from at least one source of their livelihood. The share of farming households increased from 72% in December to 78% by the time of the survey. So there was an increase. People shifted from other activities to farming. Only 8% of livestock keeping households reported that COVID had affected their livelihood production activities. So what did this one translate to in terms of general business? Overall, the estimated gross output went down by 20.7% in the month of April. So there was a contraction in output, just for the reasons we have earmarked from the household level. Approximately 3 in 10 of the businesses closed operations during April 2020 lockdown period. In our subsequent surveys, we shall see whether some have opened or more have closed down. About 35% of the manufacturing establishments operated between 26 to 25%, whereas 34.5% operated between 51 to 70%, respectively, of their utilization capacity. 2 in 100 of the establishment introduced new products during the period. And these products are namely face masks, hand sanitizers. 52% of establishments reduced their payroll size as a result of the lockdown. 86% of sectors of the economy put in place safety measures in order to mitigate the COVID-19 pandemic as a response. Gross output for formal economy, excluding finance and insurance services, decreased from 7.3 trillion in March 2020 to 5.8 trillion shillings in April 2020. A drastic reduction when you exclude just finance and insurance, but the other real sector suffered. In the manufacturing sector, 4 in 100 of the establishments had significantly improved at least a product during March to April. Innovation. 43% of establishments reported that their cost of doing business was above the normal range during March and April 2020. And finally, the percentage of establishments obtaining the raw materials from domestic sources increased to 85.3%. So there is switching from imported raw materials to local products. In summary, you can now see how the outbreak affects households and businesses. However, the last statement we have made is that domestic raw materials are becoming more prominent in the production activity in the country, which is a bit of a good news amidst the storm. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Unfortunately, I really would have loved to give you more time because matters of statistics need digestion, and sometimes when explained better, the overall wananchi at home who is watching us on TV does appreciate them, but we get the picture on the COVID-19 impact monitoring report at the household level. But I wanted to bring in Her Excellency Rosa Malango before she leaves. Rosa, you are listening in and listening to Dr. Muchiza as he gave some very grim statistics there. But we want to look ahead, and we will be looking at the statistics deeply. But before I let you go, Your Excellency, your key recommendations as the UN.
Thank you very much, and I really want to appreciate once again the professor, and I want to congratulate the Deputy Governor for making it in. We are honored to have facilitated his return back home. On the recommendations from the UN family, allow me to share them. They're just 4 really quickly. The first, we strongly recommend the need to fully align the national data system to the national and global development frameworks. This is to ensure progress reporting and impact analysis. We need to shift from national and regional averages to ensuring that data is always disaggregated by different dimensions, including ethnicity, sex, age, geographical areas, and disability. 2, given the ever-evolving data ecosystem, we need continuous capacity building at the national and local levels. This has to be a critical prerequisite. These initiatives should be local-driven, sustainable, and help all of us to be familiar and comfortable with data collection and management. 3, we need to create an open national data portal that presents data in simple formats that can be interpreted and meet the needs of potential users. Data consumers must be helped to make sense of the volumes of data and make sure that policymakers, media, civil society, the public can use the data that is there. And then lastly, it is time to appreciate and fully explore synergies and partnerships with the private sector, academia, and civil society on innovative forms of data. I commit that as the United Nations, we will support all of this. We are currently helping to develop an SDG dashboard, review the national standard indicator framework, improve poverty measurement, and also we are finalizing a joint UN program on data and statistics. They'll be part of our new cooperation framework that will be launched shortly. Congratulations and thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you for your time this morning, and you've really given us an input that we will be chewing on for the better part of this morning. I want now to invite the Executive Director, Private Sector Foundation Uganda, who's been listening in to both the presentation by Dr. Mchiza, but also generally the presentation by all our panelists via Zoom and here in the room. Gideon Badagawa, please speak to us on the use of statistics in private sector development. Please do share with us how these statistics, some shared with us even just now, that is relatively new information to us, and those that you've actually been using in developing programs or policies and agendas for the private sector. Over to you, Gideon.
Thank you very much, Maurice.
Your microphone. There's a microphone, I'm sure, next to you somewhere.
Can you hear me?
Closer. If it's closer, yes, we will.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Maurice. And I really want to appreciate the organizers of this meeting. Certainly, our much appreciation to the Bureau of Statistics for really having to coordinate the national statistical framework or system. I think it's very important for all of us to appreciate and recognize that the functions of planning, prioritization, budgeting, where we put resources to use, and implementation of programs and projects are really anchored on the availability of quality and vital statistics. And when we say quality, we mean that the information, the data that is available for planning must be determined scientifically, not by guesswork, not by sentiments, and so on. So I really want to appreciate the effort by the Bureau of Statistics, especially through censuses and surveys and the involvement of the civil society, of the private sector, and every user of statistics to be part and parcel of these surveys, these censuses, because they are critically important to resolve, especially if we have these quality statistics, to resolve the challenges of society. Poverty, income growth, the housing situation, the housing gap, filling the housing gap, understanding who is living and how are they living, the livelihoods, and so on. These are problems, challenges that are faced by society, but which must be resolved by information supplied by the Bureau of Statistics insofar as planning and budgeting and execution of programs are concerned. So I really want to appreciate that arrangement. And on behalf of the private sector, I think we are pledge bound to always work with the entire system to ensure that we have quality statistics. Now, we all know that Uganda has signed on to several agreements, protocols internationally. Recently, we were talking about the Paris Agreement under the Agenda 2030 and so on. And the private sector is right at the center in implementing and delivering this Agenda 2030 for the Sustainable Development Goals, 17. So whether you're talking about health statistics, poverty statistics, housing, sanitation, environment statistics, all these are critically important for the private sector to come by, to be involved as partners to ensure that we have the targets met, but also the targets are going to be met by the indicator, by us looking at the indicators on how we move towards these targets. So when we talk about the delivery of Agenda 2030, principally we are talking about looking at two things. And these two things are going to require quality information, quality statistics. And that is indicators, how we monitor our performance towards the targets of Agenda 2030. And that is critically important. And I want to emphasize social statistics and environment statistics. I know we've been for a long time talking about price statistics, economic statistics, and all these kind of things. But I think it dawns on us now that where we're going, the effort, the emphasis must be now put on social statistics. These are very important because they concern communities, they concern how people live, because we plan for people. These statistics, when we talk about statistics for planning, we are planning for people. We are not planning for trees. Trees are important. We are not planning for soil. We're planning for soil. Soil are important insofar as they support humanity. Trees, environment is important insofar as it supports humanity. So all these statistics are going to actually revolve around the human population, the human being, the safety, the security, and so on and so forth of the human population. So therefore, the question that we should be putting across from our viewpoint is how do we then build national capacities for generating quality and vital data? And I think UBOS is only being polite here. I want to suggest that the reason for this meeting is to cause attention that there must be focus there must be focus on how we generate sufficient data to take decisions. Never take a decision if you don't have the evidence that is so required. And I like your tagline, UBOS. We are evidence-based. I read it there. We are evidence-based. Even judges will never take a judgment, will never take a verdict until they are sufficient on evidence. So decisions, economic decisions, social decisions in society, everywhere must be anchored on the availability of this. And the question is therefore, do we have the requisite capacity to generate these quality statistics that we're talking about here? So, UBOS, compiling statistics, running the surveys, doing all sorts of things. Of course, you can do the sample surveys because you may not be able to cover the entire population and so on. But then the question is, the users of statistics must be deeply involved in the survey structures. You know, when you are designing these tools for collecting statistics, and I really want to appreciate UBOS because you always come to us. When you undertake this, for instance, the census of business establishments, when you are doing this COVID, survey on the farms, the impact that COVID has created and so on, I think we are deeply involved. We suggested how this could be done and so on and so forth. I mean, it's like the tax structure. The Uganda Revenue Authority, you can be very efficient as an administrator of tax. But as long as the taxpayers are not properly educated, do not have sufficient information on why they must participate and get involved, then it becomes very difficult even for the most efficient people to be able to get the kind of tax yield that they are looking for. So the quality of statistics will also depend on the users, will depend on the demand side. The demand side of how much can we get involved to be able to use these statistics. So make it simple. If you have a report, for instance, that you must supply, make it simple, user-friendly, simple statistics for people to understand. Short, leaflets that people can be able to appreciate and without compromising on the quality of that statistics. So we should not be hearing Uganda is about 42 million people. Then another report talks about 38 million people. Another one talks about 41 million people. And then a census takes 20 years to run. You're referring to statistics of 20 years ago, and so on and so forth. The growth of our population, if you are asked today, one would say 3.1%, another one would say 3%, another one would say 3.4%. You've been hearing this. What is the quality? How are we benchmarking ourselves against the norm, the standards, the international standards? When someone says growth of population in Uganda is 3.2, then every one of us should be saying that. And that is the basis for planning. It should not be 3%, not be 3.4%. This is just an example.
Very quick, you have a minute, Gideon.
When it comes to the impact, and I really want to appreciate again government and UBOS for running these surveys. We at the private sector have run what we call a barometer, business barometer. It's a survey we quickly ran immediately after we had this challenge. And the statistics that are being put here actually rhyme quite very well with the outcomes or the results that we had out of our barometer. And even the survey that was done later by EU and the UN CDF spoke the same thing. I like the statistic. For instance, 50% of the businesses really had to cut back on the payroll size. We found that also. They found that as UBOS. The UN CDF found that. And they said if this continues, more than 60% of the businesses, especially SMEs, would have actually shut down after 6 months. They found that, we found that. So the question is, how do we use these compelling statistics to ensure that we come up with decisions that can help society? And I think it's glaring clear we're talking about quality statistics here. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gideon. I know for a fact that if you gave Gideon more time, he can continue speaking. And so I am aware, Gideon, I have to be very careful when I provide time to you, because you're very passionate about the private sector and the impact of COVID, especially on the private sector. So I want to move to the Ministry of Finance, and let me ask you, Dr. Sam Mugume, because when you prepared this 2020-2021 budget, that was pre-COVID, and we've been realigning the budget to fit the conditions, the current COVID-19 conditions. But let's speak to the issues around program-based budgeting, the need for timely statistics as a measurement in program-based budgeting. Yes. You'll switch it on. There should be a button there on the side, as long as it's, oh, down, yes. Yes. Closer to your mouth, yes.
Thank you very much, Morris, and thank you very much, everybody who's here today. Protocol is observed. I will not go into that. I've already been introduced, but I'm standing in here for the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, who would have liked to be here because of the seriousness of this meeting and also the seriousness of the topic that we're discussing, statistics, especially for development. I'll go and look at what Morris has asked me, basically, and this is the topic, the timely statistics for performance-based budgeting. And this is what we use. It will answer your question later on after. I'll talk about that, the question that you asked. First of all, I'm happy to be talking at this moment when Professor and Dr. Tai and Dr. Mkiza have already expressed the importance of statistics, why we need statistics. So I go into program-based budgeting. And what is program-based budgeting? And how can we compare it to output-based budgeting? These are two concepts. There are two concepts of planning and budgeting, where when we talk of program, Morris, can I?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you so much.
The microphone is yours alone, so I feel safe.
I'm happy. It was suffocating me. When you look at program-based budgeting, that's the point where you're trying to look at the impact of whatever you're doing. Previously, we're using what we're calling output budget tools. Output budgeting. And there we're looking at outputs based on activities. And then it was easy for us to quantify if you had an activity, say construction of a road, you've constructed 100 kilometers using so much money. When we move to program-based budgeting, we stop looking at an activity in isolation. We look at an activity and what results is it going to produce at impact level. So our interest is at impact level. If you've worked on a road, or if you've had students, pupils in primary schools attending for 1 year, 100 people attending, very good. But what is the impact to the society? What is the impact to these people? And this one calls for detailed analysis. And this one calls for timely statistics. Not only timely, I want to add what Professor talked about, timely but of high quality, accurate, and you got using standard international methods. So this is the challenge that we have. However, program-based budgeting gives us is good in this way. One, it's easy for us when we use program-based budgeting, because we're looking at annual plans and annual budgets, to directly link our budgets to the National Development Plan 3. You are aware our National Development Plan 3 is based on 18 programs. So we can easily direct our budgets to the NDP and be able to measure and quantify what we're achieving. Two, PBB allows us, gives us autonomy, all institutions of government, the agencies, ministries, and departments, and local governments, the autonomy for you to look at your actions and activities that you've, and projects that you've planned and see, are they leading you to the objective of your program? Is the impact coming out? And then you can be able to allocate within acceptable regulations to be able to allocate the resources in terms of manpower, in terms of money, so that you can be able to achieve your main objective. So what does this one call for? You will not be able to understand that I'm not moving to my objective at impact level unless you have timely and reliable statistics. So that's the emphasis here that I'm trying to bring out. We need statistics as far as PBB is concerned, and we need it more now than we needed before when we had output budgeting, both at national level, at local government level, and agencies. And we need this at level of planning. When you're planning, when you're going to look for your activities and projects to fund, you need to have data, and timely data, high quality. You need to have indicators. When you're setting the indicators to measure over time as you implement, you need this data. Also, during the time of implementation, this data should be able to come in and should be able to inform whatever measures you're going to take. At reporting level, we need this very, very important data, the timely statistics, so that we can be able to write good reports. I'm talking about all these three steps: planning, implementation, and reporting. Because when you're doing program-based budgeting, this is the steps you'll go through. And the tool that we have in Ministry of Finance that's called PBS looks at all these under one platform. Then you can be able to produce results. However, one of the things that I would put, like, I would go straight to, let me go to talk, because I know you of time will come. Or let me look at.
I was about to alert you.
I knew
yes.
that, but this is very important, Maurice. That's why I ran out. If you look at what we have right now, I was highly involved, everybody here was highly involved in preparation of NDP 3. Data, timely data was very, very important and required, and in some cases, our indicators, you could find we're using data, maybe from the surveys, from the census, some could use the proxies, and here this is the important part, especially when we go to like environment and climate change, when you go to some other social impacts areas, this is the point where we need timely and more reliable data to make our indicators more measurable, so that we can be able to report on them. So, this time now, COVID. The time like now, when we have social economic shocks, like COVID, where you're going to have a structural break in terms of your time series. The data, we look at time series for us. As statisticians, we use the past to tell the future, and this is what we do in Ministry of Finance. So when you get a structural break like this, it's going to be hard for you to use the time series, the historical data sets, and then you forecast what is going to happen. And this is the cause of us adjusting a number of things, looking at, say, the growth rate is going to be this, then this. So in that case, if it's going to be there for a short time, then we need short-term surveys, like the one the results the ED gave us, so that they can inform us on what to do and how to do it best. But again, and this is the emphasis what we're saying, for us to have timely data, high quality, we need the short-term surveys, we need more surveys, we need to rethink the way we're collecting our data, like Professor Ben said. Can we think of other methods? Can we look at the big data? Can we look at the social media data? But that's why we have a National Statistical Office, UBOS, should be able to tell us, no, look here, this is not going to be under the accepted methodology, so we cannot use, maybe we can use that as a proxy. But all in all, in summary, now that we're operating program-based budgeting in Ministry of Finance and all the agencies of government, is the time when we need high quality data, we need it timely, we need it high frequency. From our side, Ministry of Finance, we appreciate this. And what we're doing, one of the things we're doing under PNSD 3 with Uganda Bureau of Statistics, we are trying to see the best way how we can have our statisticians get coordinated from the different agencies, from the different ministries, so that we can ably coordinate ourselves and be able to generate enough data for Uganda Bureau of Statistics to look at and give us easily. That's one, we are working on that with the Bureau, and we hope it's going to work out well. Two, this appreciation also goes that if in case a justification is clearly made from national statistical, from the Bureau, like we've always done, ED, this is what I was told, that if a justification is made for a survey, then the resources probably can be found. And also it goes to our development partners. If you make a justification like I'm making right now, and it's made properly, then we need more surveys to be able to get timely and high quality statistics. I want to thank you for listening. I saw you going to your microphone, and I'm honored to be here this morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sam. I'm really finding it difficult, especially when all the presenters are giving very insightful contributions, to cut them short. So, Catherine, you'll bear with me. We will try and manage the time a little later. But before I come to the Deputy Governor, Bank of Uganda, allow me join or invite Dr. Sarah Sewanyana. Dr. Sarah Sewanyana from EPRC. Sarah, can you hear me? Yes, Sarah, you can hear me? Can we have Sarah's microphone unmuted? And Sarah, yes, we see you. We are just going. Yes, now we can hear you, Sarah. Let me ask the question, Sarah, and this is where I want you to come in. The value of poverty measurement and small area statistics. Share with us on this, especially because we are looking at what Dr. Sam was talking about, and having listened to the detail of the statistics shared with us by UBOS, we want you to be very specific on those areas. Dr. Sarah.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator, and thank you so much for the invitation. As EPRS, we are so proud to be part of this. And we come in as one of the major users of statistics produced by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. And we do appreciate that. And I do think that one time UBOS should also think of giving us an award for utilizing much of their data set compared to any other institution in this world.
You have been heard loud and clear.
That said, I wanted to, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I think I'm going to start from the policy side, given the fact that I'm talking from a policy-oriented research center. I think when I flash back in 2010, when the government shifted focus from poverty to development, and when we started thinking about the National Development Plan and so on. However, what is interesting that poverty reduction remained top on the developmental agenda of Uganda, and we are really proud of that because my center does a lot of poverty analysis, and we are proud that government still looks at it as one of the things that it has to continue monitoring. And I think I wanted to just to say, why do we bother with poverty measurement? Poverty is one of the indicators of well-being. Others say of welfare, others say of development. And if poverty is ignored at all, it is really going to be costly to any economy, not only Uganda, but every country will be affected. So we mind so much about poverty because if individuals are poor, they are likely to get sick, they are likely not to go to school, they are likely not to have enough food and so on. and this might impact on their human capital development. And you know that anything that has to do with the human capital development, at the end of the day, it does impact on your economy, your economy. And we also measure poverty for us to be able to know where the poor are located and who are these poor and to what extent are they poor. We need all this information for us to be able to move forward. And most importantly, we need also to know the nature of poverty. Are they in a chronic state, whereby every time they're in poverty, or they're in and out of poverty, and also those who are really always out of poverty? All that is really very critical for us to be able to know that. And Uganda has been doing poverty measurement, I think, since the early 1990. And this has been done for the purposes of really informing government poverty reduction strategies. If you look back, we see poverty being one of the indicators that is used in determining how much fiscal transfers goes to the local governments. It has also been used in terms of targeting beneficiaries, like when you go back to the SAGE project, which is targeting the elderly. At the very beginning, we did argue that the older people the older population is not really homogeneous. There are those who are poor and those who are really not poor. So at the beginning, when you had a SAGE project where we participated in designing it, we are really looking for those elderly people who are really living in poverty. However, I think now it is really universal, which is really so unfortunate, because there are really those poor, those guys who are really poor who need that kind of social assistance. We also know that poverty has been used, the poverty measurement has been used by development partners in terms of their programming. And we really do appreciate that they really value that information that is produced locally to inform their own programming for a country like Uganda. And we've been using poverty, the poverty measurement for us to be able to monitor progress over time. And I think this has to continue, because it's a good practice to know how you are performing. When poverty goes up and when poverty goes down, definitely you have to change the course to ensure that you are still really on the right path. And I recall when poverty increased in 2002, it was really a bad experience for Uganda, because we are really reducing at such a fast rate. And then we also observe another reversal in 2016 when poverty went up. But that is mainly at the national level. But when you look deep down, at a disaggregated level, some of the sub-regions were doing very well and so on. And this is an issue which Rosa was talking about, that we need to have disaggregated data sets for us to be able to target the poor better. But as you measure poverty, the thing that you have to be able to ask yourself, that is really the quality of statistics that you are utilizing, okay? And as EPRC, we have noted over time that the quality of data that is being produced by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics has improved significantly over time. And the frequency of producing this data has really gone up. I commend the Bureau for that. However, we need to ensure that we maintain the image, the repute of the.
Dr. Sarah, I'm not so sure if we lost you there, and whether it's network in your area. All right, as soon as we have Dr. Sarah, I'll come back to her. We do apologize for that. Dr. Sarah, we lost you there. All right. So let me come to you, the Deputy Governor, Bank of Uganda, and this was meant to conclude this conversation on the session. The role of statistics in informing the financial policies that are taken by the bank, especially with the CBR, but also at a micro level to look at the other financial services like mobile money and how this service, you can deepen mobile money, which has become a tool of trade across the country in rural areas using statistics and the numbers you're picking from the data you're putting together on mobile money. But let's first speak to the issues on statistics informing the financial decisions you make with the bank.
Thank you, Maurice. And with all the protocol observed, a big kudos to UBOS for organizing this event here to sensitize Ugandans on the role of statistics. This is really very useful. And Sarah talked about awards for users of data. I want to assure her that Bank of Uganda would be a strong contender for that award. Okay. You mentioned about the role of statistics in terms of monetary policy. It is even becoming much more important, particularly as Bank of Uganda has moved to inflation targeting light, where we take a forward-looking view about implementation of monetary policy. So we ask ourselves that 18 months from now, 12 months from now, where will inflation be if the current conditions prevail? If you find that the current conditions will make your inflation level to be above where you want or below where you want, then you need to take an action today. But for you to be able to do that, you should be able to forecast what is going to happen to inflation from now onwards. And you can only do that if you have good models, first of all, to estimate inflation, and above all, if you have good data. There's a saying, garbage in, garbage out, right? If you don't have good data, certainly you won't get good results. And consequently, your capacity then to formulate monetary policy to achieve what you want may be constrained because of poor data. So what is the challenge that we see that has been related to COVID-19? Prior to the outbreak of COVID-19, Bank of Uganda used to collect data, real sector data, monetary and financial sector data, fiscal data, and also external sector data. And most of this data came from UBOS, others came from surveys, particularly on the real sector, the composite index of economic activity. And from this external sector, we were getting data from customs, URA, and also we were conducting surveys on informal cross-border trade, annual personal transfer survey, and quarterly private sector enterprise survey. So all this was helpful in terms of forming an input in the conduct of monetary policy. But since the outbreak of COVID-19 and the related restrictions, these have become very challenging in terms of collecting, analyzing, disseminating, and for monetary policy formation. There were restrictions in movements, working from home dynamics. You talk about ensuring the quality of data that has been talked earlier on, the urgency with which reliable data is needed to make immediate decision given a crisis even becomes much more important. But of course, the impact is important, that if there's a delayed decision making, all right, then you are forced to use partial data. And as a result, how effective are the policies that you are going to put in place going to be? So this is a big challenge to us, given that without reliable statistical information, policymakers cannot assess the magnitude of the impact of the pandemic and how it's going to impact on the broader population. So how do we then have to deal with all these challenges? And in fact, it's not even helped by the fact that during COVID-19, some people argue that COVID-19 did not only affect human beings, it also infected statistics. Why did it infect statistics? You have what you call infodemics. Infodemics in that everybody is producing statistics unverified, some is fake, some is just meant to please whoever wants to sell a story about COVID. And so if you are relying on high-frequency data, then which data are you going to pick? If you're going to use data on social media, you're going to use data from whatever is coming out there. What kind of data are you going to pick to help you fill up the data gaps that you're experiencing because of COVID-19? So it becomes a challenge. And then most importantly, that point was raised by the Minister of Finance, that is a structural break, right? If you've been having models that you've been using for running your forecast, those parameters break, all right, in this environment of COVID. So it means that all that you are forecasting going forward is going to be uncertain because you do not know the intensity and the duration of COVID going forward, and the impact of this duration and intensity on the key macroeconomic variables become a challenge. So you do not know where output is going to be 12 months from now, because if the intensity really goes north, then your output is going to be much lower than what you had used for forecasting inflation 12 months down the road. All right? If the duration is much longer, then what you are projecting going forward, all right, is even going to be much more uncertain. So it places a big burden on the policymaker. So as Bank of Uganda, we've tried to see how we can fill the data gaps by using innovative approaches, by conducting telephone surveys, by emails and what have you. But the downside of that is you're likely to get perceptions, right? Depending on the mood of the respondent. I mean, you don't know what he left at home today, and you ask him to give you something about output, you're going to get a perception. And if you're going to use that thing in your policy formulation, boy, you can easily get wrong results. So that is a real challenge in as far as that is concerned. So I think we need to move out from this, and this is where I am going to call on UBOS, that we need to put our heads together. How can we ensure that we use digital technology to transform the reporting processes, collecting and analyzing of data in real time? I think to me that's the point I am going to come back later on as a way forward. We heard about big data. We heard about open data. The role of technology in this becomes important. Whereas COVID-19 has come with its own challenges, there are also opportunities that this COVID-19 has brought. So we need to seize on those challenges. But I will come back to that in my summary. Now, you also mentioned something about financial sector issues and the role of mobile money. Maurice, there's a paper, a survey that really I liked most. It was done by the financial sector Deepening of Uganda. It's called Assessing the Economic Resilience of Ugandan Households Before COVID-19. It produced some very interesting results, which has posed some challenges to us as a central bank. No, they looked at three aspects: the capacity of households to sustain their lifestyle, the capacity to cope, and the capacity to survive during the COVID-19. And what was interesting was that if you look at the capacity to sustain, 57% of the Ugandans could not live beyond the first day of lockdown because they are hand-to-mouth officials. If you cannot report to Katwe to do your, your thing, you have no food. If you can't push a wheelbarrow in a construction site, you have nothing for the day. So 57% of the households could not live more than 1 day. And then 81% of them could not go beyond the 15th day because the capacity to survive to sustain lifestyle is very low. And if you look at the coping mechanisms, 1 in 4 of them could not even adopt a coping mechanism after day 1. And most importantly, the survival needs, particularly for the urban, was very, very poor, at least for the rural areas, because they had their subsistence. Now, what am I talking about? Where am I bringing all this? I'm bringing all this because it has another angle of financial inclusion. These results are the result of limited financial inclusion. And to us as a central bank, that is very, very informative, that we need to do more than what we've been doing. We can talk about banking system stability, you can talk about this, but if you have this kind of numbers, it is a challenge. So what do we need to do to improve on these numbers? 1, recently, the national payment systems, a law on the national payment system was enacted. So I think we need to take advantage of that law to see how we can promote financial inclusion, and through a platform of mobile money. That mobile money, this thing here is a very, very powerful tool, very, very powerful tool in terms of financial inclusion. So we need to work together with all the other key stakeholders to see how we can use this law to create an opportunity to bring more people into the financial sector. Bank of Uganda gave what is called the credit relief measures, but it's limited only to the users of banks, credit institutions, micro deposit institutions, leave alone cooperatives and societies that Ambassador Malango talked about. Those ones, we couldn't reach them because we have no intermediate role with them. We only intermediate with these three tiers: banks, credit institutions, and MDIs. But the majority of the SMEs, the majority of the households, that's where the game is. 70% of the Ugandans are employed in SMEs and in rural households, but they are not involved in the financial sector. So the big challenge for Bank of Uganda is how do we bring these guys into financial inclusion? So we want to use this national payment system law to see how we can bring more people into the financial sector. And what's interesting about COVID is, because the use of cash was identified as one of the ways you could easily transmit this pandemic. If you look at the evolution of e-payments over this period, it is very amazing. The number of e-payments grew significantly during the COVID-19. So how can we take advantage? How can we take that opportunity to further grow the use of e-payments in order to bring more people into play? So that's where we want to bring together more people. And the beauty about this is that the role of the private sector here is very, very important because they're the drivers. If you look at the payment system, already e-payments, is the private sector driving it. So you are able to collect more and more data, and then you're able to build big data on this, all right? And once you build that big data, you are likely to reduce on the role of surveys, okay? Because all you need to do is you have a warehouse of this big data. You just need to get the technology and the artificial intelligence to use that big data to do some forecasts for inputs into your monetary policy. Okay, so there's a lot that we can do with the private sector, with the communication companies, and also with other players in this. And then most importantly, we need to have what we call open data. So all the key stakeholders in the data collection should come together and say, how do we share data across? The problem sometimes is there's a duplication of data collection. And given the scarce resources statistical agencies have, we can maximize on these scarce resources by identifying who's best suited to collect this data here. And once it's collected, how do we share together? We can share together through some platform where it becomes open to all the users. In that way, we will create efficiencies, we will maximize on the use of the existing resources, and it will be a win-win situation for us all. So how do I want to end this? So what I want to do is, on the way forward, Maurice, if you allow, I think Bank of Uganda is going to scale up its operation towards inflation targeting and through the use of IT. Already we are creating what we call a data warehouse within the institution because we want to have a single repository for data, which then will inform management reports. And that one can be scaled up even at the national level. And given the uncertainty and the duration of COVID-19, we realize that it's difficult to forecast some of the things here, so we need to change. It's no longer business as usual, all right? No longer business as usual. We need to take opportunities that have come out of COVID-19 to see how we can change our business practices and procedures going forward. We cannot afford to live in the pre-COVID-19 periods. We have to look at this. And then finally, there's need to urgently strengthen the mechanism for collaboration and coordination by all the statistical users and collectors, so that we identify what kind of data do we want, so that we collect data that has got value, that has got meaning, even if you have got to pay for it. As long as it is good quality data, people out there are willing to pay for good data because it is very informative, all right? And then also, given some of the structural transformations, take for example the composite index of economic activity that we use was last based in 2013. The structural transformation has taken place. The role of services, all right, has increased. That's why tourism, that's why all these hospitality industries, and you name it, have been very, very much hard hit as a result of this. But then if you look at what we're using, the weight of that is minimal. So we are not capturing the real impact. So we need to improve in that area. And then we have to find new data sources, the collection method, and analytical tools. Again, here, we need to think big. Big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, you name it. This is where we are going to go. Even our education, even our institutions, our universities, they need to look at science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in order to support the growth of artificial intelligence and machine learning, because this is where we're going, so that we can use the big data and the open data available. Take advantage of the emerging technologies, mobile phones. You can collect a lot of big data from mobile phones by working with the communication companies. And also the e-payments, the point of sale services. You go to the Uchumis, you go to the what are these supermarkets in Uganda? I'm trying to learn what they are. They have changed since I left. Okay. But you go to all the supermarkets, all right? And if they have points of sale, you can even know which activity, all right, which sector is selling most, which sector is declining. And you can use that kind of point, just as simple as point of sale, all right? And then temporary in the short term, how do we fill the data gaps? What are the data sources? And how can we work together to ensure that we get even good quality of data in this thing? And finally, maybe we should share experiences with other countries in dealing with this pandemic and how they do the data sources. So, Maurice, I have posed more challenges for my friend here, Chris.
Good homework.
And I've known him for the good things, not the bad things, since he was doing his master's in Makerere. So that's all I had to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I must mention, outside of, I think, the release of the monetary policy statement, this may be the first public function you may have been part of. So I think UBOS needs to be congratulated for bringing you out of the bank. All right. So I really have run out of time, but I know that if it would be unfair to all the three, if I don't allow you 30 seconds on a takeaway. Gideon, I'll begin with you. Your quick takeaway, because I want to take a very short commercial break for television. Yes. Microphone. Yes.
This has been extremely exciting, quite informative, and I really want to thank again the panel.
The microphone closer, Gideon. Our people on television need to hear you. Yes.
I want to thank again the panel for this very insightful discussion. I think the way forward, the recommendations that have been made, it's not only for Bank of Uganda and Bureau of Statistics, but I think all of us need to, join hands and see how we take forward our statistics, how we clean up whatever we've been collecting and we've been using, and how we involve all the users. I think if you are awarding one or two people, now you have several that you are going to be awarding. Bureau of Statistics. So I really want to thank you very much for that organization. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to Dr. Sam before I end with the Executive Director.
Thank you, Maurice. I want to thank the Deputy Governor for the way forward. We really like it, and that's what we think should work. And to tell you that as a ministry, we are big users of data from Bureau of Statistics, not only for budgeting, but for macroeconomic analysis and forecasting, for policy development and research, for tax policy. So the recommendation really is timely, and would like more surveys like proposed using different methods.
All right. Thank you. The biggest beneficiary here, Dr. Muchiza.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, panelists. At the UBOS, we are very, very, very happy and overwhelmed to have very good friends, the users of statistics. Our takeaway is that, colleagues, we need to embrace collaboration, cooperation, partnerships, and deepen coordination of the NSS. The quality of statistics produced depends on the quality of the users we have. As has been mentioned by private sector, EPRC, Central Bank, and Ministry of Finance, by them reviewing our statistical products and highlighting where there are weaknesses, it strengthens the statistical product in the end. The use of innovative technology, digital technology, to harness big data, use of data science, artificial intelligence has come to the fore as non-traditional data sources, and the Bureau will invest very heavily in this area. The plan for National Social Development 3 focuses on this area very much. The other issue that comes is that the producers of statistics, suppliers and users need to embrace transparency in statistical production, development, and use. And by using best practices. Let's not just get any data and splash away to the public. Statistics is like water. We need clean water to have good life. We need to produce good statistics for good life in the overall economy. And I think this event teaches us that we should have so many of these dialogues, stretching even longer than half a day. And we have big support from the Treasury, from Central Bank, from private sector. And next time we shall join hands and because they are part of the national sources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Director. I want to thank you, members of our panel, for your contributions. We are going to quickly run to session 3, but we are taking a very, very short commercial break for those watching us on television.
Needs, supported by Right Here, Right Now, Uganda platform.
There is a place very far from this world. And the only way you can get there is through music.
And Mr. Chilanyang Cyprian, Commissioner Policy and Planning at the Ministry of Local Government. Welcome, all of you. But also joining us will be those on this during this session in Nebi and the other districts. I will be talking to some of our representatives there. I want to begin with you, John Mayende. We want to talk about administrative data. We don't have a lot of time, so our session has 30 minutes. We want to talk about administrative data and the challenges that UBOS has encountered in collecting administrative data, and how does the Bureau plan to overcome these challenges?
Thank you, Roger.
Switch on the microphone at the bottom. Yes, as long as it's green in front there, you will be okay. Okay. The microphone was sanitized, don't worry.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Maurice. Good afternoon, viewers. I'm going to talk about administrative data. Just for those of you who do not know what administrative data is administrative data is data collected by government agencies or other organizations during their routine operations or during their service delivery for purposes of keeping record and accountability. Now, administrative data is not collected for statistical purposes, but for purposes of their own use. Most of the agencies engaged in producing administrative data is for their own use, but not for statistical purposes. An example of administrative data could be birth and death records, which are compiled by maybe health facilities. We have customs data, which is collected by customs officials as goods enter the country or leave the country. And even immigration data is part of administrative data, to mention but a few. Now, most of this data is generated for their own use, for their administrative purposes, for monitoring, for planning and accountability of their functions. During PNSD2 evaluation, a number of challenges were noted in collecting this data. And indeed, UBOS was able to register them, one of it being that the administrative data is very, very poor. The quality of the data collected across the entire national statistical system, that is the data collected by ministries, departments, agencies, local governments, leaves a lot to be desired. In terms of accuracy, reliability, timeliness, accessibility, indeed is in sorrow state. And therefore there is need to do something. Another challenge which was noted was that the systems existing in those government agencies and higher local governments is very underdeveloped in terms of methodology, standards. You'll discover that there are no particular standards followed, no tools, uniform tools followed when they are recording this data. And therefore you'll find the data from one agency, data from one higher local government different from the other local government because there are no standard tools and methods used. There is also limited use of ICT in data production and management, which was noted as being one of the challenges. Poor record keeping, limited appreciation of administrative data itself. The compilers of this data do not appreciate the usefulness of this data. If you do not know the use of anything, there is bound to be an abuse. There was also an issue which was noted of unskilled manpower who are behind the generation of this administrative data. So the persons handling the data are unskilled, and therefore the quality is also left wanting. The data in some cases is unprocessed. The data remains on the records. It's remain on paper without processing it. And then another challenge which was noted was inadequate financial resources allocated for production of administrative data. Many of the MDAs do not have any budget for statistical production or statistical activities, including higher local governments. They say statistics is not important. But I want to say that if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. If you don't have statistics, you'll not know, you'll be like a blind person. And therefore, it is critical that agencies make provision for this budget. UBOS has come up with a clear strategy of strengthening administrative data and plan for national development 3. And we want to roll out the PNSD3, which each of the ministries, departments, and agencies and other local governments have been supported to develop their sector strategic plans. And therefore, one of the focus of PNSD3 and the sector strategic plans for those MDAs will be focused on strengthening administrative data production systems. We want to automate the data collection, processing, and analysis. Most of the data there is in manual form, and therefore we want to automate the systems, want to harmonize standards, tools, and methodologies across the entire national systems, want to enhance statistical capacity of those who are involved in producing administrative data, and therefore we shall do the training, we shall make sure that those who handle this data have requisite training. We also want to engage on statistical advocacy, particularly budgeting administrative data as key in this very advocacy. We want to make sure that those who are involved in day-to-day operations know how to manage this data and use it for the use of other users. We want also to see the revival of statistics structures in MDS. I think Dr. Mugumya talked about this. We want to revive statistical structures in MDS and higher local governments. Most MDS have structures, but they are not even staffed. We want to see how this can be revived under the Plan for National Statistical Development 3. We want to roll out CIS, Community Information Systems, to the lowest administrative level to generate small area statistics. Want to enhance coordination, collaboration, and partnerships among the producers of administrative data to avoid duplication and ensure efficiency in statistical production. Want also to request MDS and higher local governments to prioritize statistics and their activities and make sure that they are included in their annual work plans and budgets. My appeal is that MDS and higher local governments should cooperate with the Uganda Bureau of Statistics so that we can improve on this data and ensure that it's able to inform the country in development and any other initiatives that are ahead of us. Thank you very much. Moderator.
Thank you very much, John. I want the team that is putting together our contributors from around the country to quickly get hold of Lyra for me, and I need, as we get hold of Lyra, I wanted to just alert my panelists that I wanted to get the contribution from UBOS at once, so I don't have to come back to UBOS. So if Lyra is on, Patrick Okello, the Director, Agriculture and Environment Statistics. We are still talking about the UBOS and the collection of data. Do you have data on the environment? And I'm talking to Patrick Okello, so I hope, okay. Do you have statistics on the environment, and how can these be used to safeguard our environment? Patrick? Can we unmute the microphone for Patrick?
Thank you very much, Maurice. I'm here in Lira. In the house are the cows. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
In the house are the cows of a patch of Kitgum. Yes, we can hear you. We have the cows of a patch.
All right. Yes. I would request, Patrick, that they reduce the volume on that TV in front of you.
And Lira. So what I want to say is that UBOS produces statistics on 3 spheres: the social, economic, and environment, as demanded by the Global Development Agenda on Environment Statistics. What I would like you to know is that environment statistics is the least developed in terms of statistics that is produced globally. But of course, efforts are underway to enrich this area as well. Uganda is actually implementing what we call the framework for the development of environment statistics. And this framework has 6 components. The first component is about environmental conditions and quality. And in there, we talk about the atmosphere, we talk about issues of climate and weather, we talk about surface and groundwater resources. We also talk about issues like soil characteristics, we talk about land cover, ecosystems, biodiversity, and issues of forestry. The second category is about environment resources and their use. Here we talk about the stocks and changes in the mineral resources, the production and trade of mineral resources, the stocks and changes of energy sources, production, trade and consumption of energy, issues of land use, issues of aquatic resources, issues of crops. We talk about livestock and water resource abstraction, its use.
The network, your network is giving us some challenges. I don't know if it's settled. Patrick? All right. We'll come back to you, Patrick. I just wanted to move very quickly to Kabarole. Kabarole, if we can get Bernard Justice Muwezi, Manager Geo Information Services. Bernard, can you hear us?
Yes, Maurice, I can hear you.
All right, so how can we enhance the use of geospatial data? Yes, you can hear?
Oh, yes, I can hear. Can you hear me?
How can we use enhance the use of geospatial data to improve service delivery? Yes.
Okay, thank you, Maurice, and thank you, listeners. Here in the cool of the foot of the mount of the moon in Fort Potro, greetings from the cow of Kabarore, cow of Kasese, and cow of Hoima are present with me here. Yes, your question, to put in the context, there are two types of data sets. There is statistical data and geospatial data. Let me concentrate on that geospatial for the benefit of the listeners. Geospatial comes from the word geo. Geo is something to do with geographical component. Geo means earth, and that's where we are talking about records of statistics data with the aspect of location or coordinates or address or postal code or zip code or direction, such that you are having your record of statistics and you are giving it a component and you are attaching it to where is this data coming from, whom does it refer to, clearly on land, on ground, on the earth. That's how the geospatial data relates to statistical data. Therefore, going forward for service delivery, this is only done where if you have a marriage of statistical data and also geographical data. I remember at high school, you studied geography, which had something to do with understanding the earth and all that surrounds people that live in there. Therefore, to be able to address the issue of service delivery, you ought to be able to tell what is it that is around these people and where are these people anyway. And this therefore again fits very well in the SDGs, that is leaving nobody behind. Therefore, when we measure these statistics, at the Bureau of Statistics, since 2004, a strategy was laid out to cause every statistic that is collected to be geo-referenced. And that's why those poverty analysis and poverty mapping and those interventions of good, better statistics are being mentioned. In this respect, therefore, we think having this geospatial data to inform service delivery, you ought to have done very good integration of the two technologies, such that you have geospatial-enabled statistical data, and then that's when you'd be committed to improve the work of service delivery. In detail, there are 4 or 5 areas to conclude. We need to improve the use of geoinformation systems in statistical production system. We need to augment our statistical data collection regimes with other geospatial technologies or ICTs, which already the big people in the house have mentioned, not limited to big data, data science, remote sensing, and GPS location-based systems like these phones showing where you are sending information from and so on. All these make it a lot better, the statistics or the numbers that you are having. You have a source and you have in the provision of special enabled statistics. Policymakers need to be targetful. The policy is targeting who, and then you measure exactly where you expect an impact, and you come back to again to refine your policy later. Next time you can do better work. Then heighten and influence resource allocation and targeting by geographically conceptualizing what you are doing or you are programming, like the program-based approach I mentioned, so that you can have optimal performance in service delivery you need to know the hard to reach areas. Where are they? So that you're able to reach the poor communities. Other than that, you will spread your services and they will not reach to those who would benefit, and the most vulnerable ones. The rich, they continue getting richer, and the poor will get poorer, because you not target very well, because you have not targeted the point of gap or the point of scarcity. Lastly,
yes, very quickly.
We need therefore to boost functional geospatial services in programming so that we have better work. Therefore, the kind of service delivery we desire is that which leaves nobody behind the sustainable development goals way. Thank you very much indeed for listening.
Thank you very much, Bernard, and the team from Kabarole. If you're watching us, you've joined us at session 3, where we're looking at the importance of administrative data and its role in addressing the gender gap. I want to invite into the conversation Ms. Adekini from UN Women, who will be specifically speaking to an area of interest, SDG 5. And I wanted to ask you, Ms. Adekini, is there good data, first of all, on gender statistics? And how does the UN Women plan to support the collection of data, of administrative data, to measure the attainment of progress made towards SDG 5?
Thank you, Maurice, and thank you to UBOS for organizing this very important e-conference and prioritizing gender as a key aspect of data statistics in this country. Delivery of a 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development renewed the drive and the interest and the role of gender data in driving and monitoring sustainable development. But first of all, let me give a backdrop in terms of the definition of either gender statistics or gender disaggregated data. It's about adequately reflecting the differences in men and women, boys and girls, in their experiences throughout life challenges and throughout the life cycle. And therefore, in every area of life, identifying the differential impacts, the differential issues of men and women, boys and girls, and also the different age differences in ensuring that this is brought to the fore in national statistics. So this was actually highlighted during Beijing Platform for Action in 1995, where all countries were called upon to ensure that national statistics services and systems actually not only capture these issues, but also look at the various challenges and issues that men and women, boys and girls face, and that these are fully analyzed and documented. And this is what actually should inform national development programming and also be captured in reporting, budgeting, and the whole gamut of national development in that regard. So producing this kind of data entails breaking up the data by sex, by age, disability, and other characteristics to reveal the differences and the inequalities, and collecting such data actually reveals the different outcomes that people face. For example, we notice in the border with South Sudan that the influx, just a few men are coming through, and most of the people coming through, perhaps 80% or more, are women. Why is that happening? So the gender statistics will enable us identify those differences, identify the gaps, know what the issues are, and through that process we'll be able to tailor development programming to respond to the issues. So to your question about what has been done over the time, as you have heard before, Uganda is regarded as the model to follow, and a lot of countries come to learn from what is happening in Uganda. So over the time, UN Women has supported Uganda to develop the national priority gender equality indicators that have been selected as the best practice amongst the tools for supporting implementation of the SDGs in Uganda. Also, there is the integration of gender perspectives in the design and delivery of the plan for national statistical development, which my colleague has just described, as part of the global requirement for all countries to improve quality statistics. UN Women has also supported UBOS to invest in gender-responsive surveys, such as the Time Use Survey, to monitor unpaid care work and domestic care work, which enable the government to really see the differences and the gaps in the different sexes in this country. Development of citizen-generated data is very important within the context of gender statistics, because it is going to the citizens themselves and eliciting information about the differences, about the gaps, about perceptions, and about other issues. And once that is documented, it would support the process of decision-making, which is evidence-based in line with the motto of UBOS. So for UN Women, we think that while there is a lot of progress in these areas, and we have seen this over the years, UN Women has also supported a strong partnership with our flagship program on what we call the Making Every Woman and Girl Count, which supports the implementation and monitoring of the SDGs through the production and use of gender statistics. There are two major areas that I would want to emphasize where there is additional need to bolster the capacity of government in terms of generating gender statistics and the use of that. And one of the areas in the new program-based budgeting approach that has just been implemented by government, if this is accompanied by strong data and gender statistics, and that is also integrated throughout the budgeting process, then we can know that gender-responsive budgeting has been strengthened, and at the end of the day, allocation of resources will follow the need. And this is this was a huge gap that we noticed in the economic stimulus package that was implemented by government as a result of COVID. There were huge gaps in terms of the needs of women, businesses, small and medium-scale enterprises were not prioritized as much as they should have, because there was a lack of data in helping the decision makers. The second area is in the area of poverty measurement and the small area statistics, which a previous speaker had spoken about. This is very critical in advancing gender equality and the empowerment of women. And there's need to mainstream gender in the requirements for the tools and for the collection, and in fact the reporting as well, so that the whole gamut of policy making, planning, programming, implementation, and all interventions, including resource allocation, actually reflect that robust gender data and enable evidence-based programming and decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wasn't, or I'm hoping I can get one more minute from you, because we wanted to look at the national priority gender equality indicators. Do you want to speak to that?
Yes.
In view of their role in the national statistical system.
As most people would know, well, this is a national e-conference. So what really is an indicator? An indicator really is a reference point at a particular stage where the statistics of different data sets are identified and against which progress will be measured. So this has been developed and has been integrated into the national statistical system. And fortunately, Uganda is one of the very few countries across the world that has integrated gender into that process, which shows that as we go through the implementation of NDP3, we would be able to measure the progress that has been made based on the different indicators that have been identified and integrated into the process. Right now, we're looking to how we would support the 18 sectors of government to come up with very clear annual targets and which are gender responsive and which will enable us measure progress in the years and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clearly you understand when they say TV time. Very brief to the point. Thank you so much. You've saved me quite some bit of time. I'll come to you, Mr. Chilanyang Cyprian, Commissioner Planning and Policy at the Ministry of Local Government. Let's talk about the importance of data in your space, the value of data in indicative planning figures on local government and the local government programs.
Thank you, Maurice. And I would like to start by thanking the Executive Director of UBOS for organizing this e-conference and inviting us as the Ministry of Local Government to participate. We are really grateful. Every time we have this opportunity, we really are thankful. We've worked a lot with UBOS on a couple of things. And even on our day-to-day work, it involves UBOS. Every time, for example, a new local government is formed, a new district is formed, a city is formed, you need figures. You need the IPF figures, and we get them from the UBOS. So thank you very much, UBOS, for working together. Right now, we have a couple of things we're working on with UBOS. We're trying to verify the number of parishes and villages. It's something that we're already working on. And also, it's because of certain advantages that the Ministry of Local Government has that I would request that we continue. We can take it to another level. Because, for example, when you know the mandate of the Ministry of Local Government, the mandate is that they should be able to have a representation throughout the government. Ministry of Local Government has this network where we are able to get to the parish or to the village chief. So the moment we can take advantage of that, UBOS can take advantage of that for quick surveys or for even large surveys that they would like to do. So it's an advantage that the Ministry of Local Government has that we can work together with UBOS and be able to reach the smallest unit of government and be able to get information. So what kind of administrative data do we have in the ministries, in the Ministry of Local Government and in the local government? Much of it is basically staffing levels. It's important for us to know the staffing levels of our local governments. The administrative units that we have from LC1 to LC5, the local revenues that are being collected by the local government, number of schools that are functional in the local government, number of health centers, clinics, even if they're private. All this information is very important information for the local government. The number of routine inspections that our local government officials make to institutions like hospitals, like schools, and so on. So this is the kind of administrative data that we collect as local governments. And so drilling down to how exactly do we use this data? Of course, it's for planning purposes. Like my colleague here, my colleague panelist here has mentioned, for planning purposes, we need to know, for example, the population in an area for the district to decide which sub-county they should put a school or which sub-county they should put a secondary school. You need to know, using quality data, where the hospital should be located. So these are the real need for good and quality data. The second thing that we commonly use the data for, like I've already explained, is the fact that we use it for resource allocation, the IPFs. The Minister of Finance will need to know certain variables about a place before the finances are allocated. For example, the population, the poverty levels in the areas. These are all variables that are put into the formula and the model for allocation of resources. So these are the two key important things that require data, including monitoring and evaluation. For example, if you want to see how far the local government has gone in service delivery, you need the actual data. How many patients came to the hospital? How many got treatment? How many staff do you have in the health center or in the school? How many teachers do you have? So this also helps us as the Ministry of Local Government to be able to monitor the performance of local governments in as far as service delivery is concerned. There are a couple of things, of course, that Mr. Mayenda has already mentioned, which I'd wanted to discuss, and this is the area where there's need for improvement in MDAs and local governments. The capacity of these local governments to be actually able to get this administrative data, quality administrative data, is one area that I think something should be done to be able to have all local government have that capacity. I'll give you an example. 50% of local governments in the country have actually not recruited planners. And you can imagine the person who would probably be on top of this information gathering is the district planner. So it's something that we are working on and a point for discussion. Also, you may have planners, but how well trained are they on the information that they're supposed to get? So this is another area that we're looking at. It's a challenge, but we would need to have a way of guiding or training all the planners in which areas and which data to collect. Also the tools. Some of course don't have computers, and it's something that local governments should look at carefully to make sure that their planners have the basic tools for data gathering, the computers, even the guides on what kind of information you should be collecting.
1 minute.
Mr. Mayende talked about the facilitation for the local governments, and the real how it happens is, in order for you to have quality data, you need to do very good consultation. So the process of consultation requires that you have to go sometimes deep to the parish, to the sub-county and so on. And usually because of the financing element, I'm sure the kind of data that we have may suffer from this kind of weakness. Also, of course, the letter approvals that local governments always have on plans. For example, now we have started the 5-year plan for all MDAs. But don't get surprised if you go to some entities and you find that they have not yet even approved their 5-year plan. And now we are 4 months or 3 months into the new year. So these are some of the challenges that we need to improve. Of course, the overarching one is the political intervention sometimes, especially there in the local lower governments. Even if data shows you that the population is on this side and the school should be put here, you may find some other person who is bigger may decide that no, I'm representing this. So those are some of the small challenges that we have when we are dealing with data, because as you know, these are decentralized governments.
Okay.
So they can decide how to run their affairs. So these are the areas that I'd planned to talk about.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cyprian. Thank you for that. And we're going to have an input from some of the cows, but I wanted to let go of some of our partners, NBS and NTV, who will be now moving to normal programming, but we'll continue with this discussion on UBC. All right. We have some of the cows, or at least the representatives of the cows here. If I could, by show of hands, see the representative from PG. who is in this room. Yes. If I could just give you a few seconds, 30 if you can, on your statistical requirements as a district. Microphone, please. There. Introduce yourself, and then you can remain seated. That's okay.
Manuel Sempala, I'm a deputy. I'm representing. Thank you for the invitation. I think we need to do a rehabilitation kind of.